Protecting your right to success after narcissistic abuse. Have you found yourself in friendships or relationships where you always seem to be the butt of the joke? Has it seemed impossible to you that such friends or partners might actually be jealous of you? Do you find yourself taking a lot more ribbing than dishing it out with others? Well, if any of these experiences apply to you and you grew up with a narcissistic parent, then today's video may be important. I want to explain how getting used to the way a narcissistic parent treats you as inferior can make it hard to detect when others put you down out of jealousy or envy for what you possess as a person. Then I'm going to discuss the importance of protecting yourself from the emotional injuries involved in such relationships, and then I'll address how your own sense of having to take emotional care of the people who react with jealousy towards you can get in the way of protecting yourself. And finally, I'll point you towards a resource that offers a way to assess who reacts safely to your successes and who does not, to help you determine who it's safe to be your good, impressive, and full self around without fear of evoking their jealousy or envy. Well, my name is Jay Reed, and I'm a licensed psychotherapist in California who specializes in helping people recover from narcissistic abuse. This form of abuse can leave the survivor feeling lost and estranged from their very sense of who they are. And whether it's in individual therapy or my online course on recovery from narcissistic abuse, I try to offer a map that allows survivors to find their way back to the quality of life they know they deserve. And of course, each survivor must travel the path themselves, but a map can be tremendously useful to get to where each person wants to go for themselves. And I think there are three key features of this map that I call the 3 pillars of recovery. The first pillar is making sense of what happened so that you know it was not your fault. And the second pillar involves gaining psychological, emotional, and maybe physical distance from the narcissistic abuser. And the third pillar is living in defiance of the narcissist rules. Well, today's video falls under that pillar number 3 of living in defiance of the narcissist rules. And all of these videos are categorized according to which pillar they fall under in the playlist section, in case you're interested in checking those out. And if you are a scapegoat survivor of a narcissistic parent or partner, then I'd encourage you to check out my free ebook on the topic. It's called Surviving Narcissistic Abuse as the Scapegoat, and it goes into other important aspects of what it's like to be in the shoes of the scapegoat child or partner to the narcissistic abuser. So whether it's from self-limiting beliefs about yourself that you had to adopt to survive, or why the narcissistic personality is so geared to put those closest to them down, I think this ebook can help you or contribute to helping you realize that none of this abuse was your fault, but was rather the product of the narcissistic abuser's own psychological and emotional problems or pathology. You can find a link to the ebook in the description box below or by clicking here. When feeling put down is familiar. As I've said many times in these videos, being close to a narcissistic parent as a scapegoat child typically means being made to feel inferior to that parent. The narcissistic parent will likely act in ways that are meant to erode the scapegoat child's confidence and sense of empowerment so that that narcissistic parent can enjoy an artificially inflated sense of self-worth in relation to that child. And some of the ways the parent can act to make the scapegoat child feel less than and lower status is to devalue that child in action and in attitude. Devaluation often happens when the child possesses a trait, holds an attitude or attribute that makes the narcissistic parent aware of their own deficiency in that capacity. And when this happens, the narcissistic parent is likely to feel envy brought on by seeing someone else have what they don't have, and an accompanying contemptuous desire to destroy what that other person has. That desire to destroy what the scapegoat child possesses, which the narcissistic parent does not have, is illustrated in the tale of Snow White. You know, the evil stepmother cannot stand the envy she experiences when the mirror on the wall says that she's no longer the fairest in the land, but that it's now Snow White, her stepdaughter, who's the fairest in the land. So the evil stepmother tells the huntsman to take Snow White out into the woods and bring back her heart. I think this is the pinnacle of a vindictive attack that's often brought on by a narcissistic parent's envy. You know, thank goodness there was a happy ending to that, but boy, what a chilling illustration of the reaction a narcissistic parent can have to seeing a child have more than them. So the scapegoat child, who in a way has the misfortune of having a trait, talent, or strength that's coveted by the narcissistic parent, is likely familiar with having to see themselves as deficient in this area in order to avoid such vindictive attack by the narcissistic parent. And this is why I say a physically attractive scapegoat child can believe that and perceive that they are hideous, or an extremely intelligent scapegoat child can believe that they are stupid, or even, the extremely kind and loving scapegoat child can believe themselves to be selfish and inconsiderate. I think all of these sort of contortions or distortions would really help a scapegoat child appear dispossessed of the attribute that was evoking the narcissistic parent's envy. The child learns that embracing such features of who they are actually endangers them, oftentimes severely, in their relationship with the narcissistic parent. So with that as the backdrop, what happens when the scapegoat child is met with envy and jealousy outside of the narcissistic family? Well, many who were scapegoated by a narcissistic parent report being in friendships and relationships where they were similarly treated poorly. And in therapy, when I hear of such instances, it often seems clear that these friends or partners were jealous or envious of what the scapegoat survivor possessed just as part of who they are. And I think that the survivors themselves may have a harder time entertaining that, these friends or partners' put-downs would originate from wanting what the survivor in fact has. The scapegoat survivor has had such practice in convincing themselves that they don't have the source of self-worth which endangered them with a narcissistic parent, that it can then be difficult to recognize that other people may see these sources, these talents or strengths, and react similarly as a narcissistic parent. And I think without therapeutic intervention of some sort, this can lead the scapegoat survivor to find and maintain friendships and relationships where they feel put down, yet believe themselves to deserve such treatment. Well, Jason was another fictionalized client who came to therapy to recover from being treated as the scapegoat to a narcissistic father who would constantly ridicule and put Jason down for being weird, stupid, or weak. And in contrast to his father's claims, from Jason's report, he was extremely bright and athletic as an adolescent, and it was apparent currently in the therapy. And Jason would recall a friend he had named Dave in his current life who'd always be ready with a mocking comment towards Jason for anything that Jason undertook. So if Jason got to start in his recreational basketball league, Dave would say something like, boy, they must really be in need of players if they had to resort to you to play, ha ha ha. Or I can't believe you got a promotion at your job. They must be because you kiss up to your boss so much. And it really wasn't until Jason was in therapy that he would consider the idea that Dave might be envious of Jason's athletic talent and smarts and work ethic. So after a few months in therapy of being treated with respect and growing in trust towards his therapist, he was able to safely consider this as an explanation of why Dave always seemed to be putting him down. Learning to protect yourself from others' envy and jealousy. Well, if you are a scapegoat survivor and encounter people who put you down, then an important part of recovery can be protecting yourself from this kind of treatment. And an important part of this step in recovery is recognizing that you possess what it was once dangerous to possess when you were under the reign of a narcissistic parent. And again, this too is a process. So if you spend years having to convince yourself that you are not, say, kind, smart, attractive, etc., then it's going to take some time and patience to entertain the opposite with yourself, to in fact get to know it's safe to entertain these truths about yourself. But it can be really important to try to do this in the context of a safe relationship, whether that's in therapy or with other safe people in your life. And you can facilitate your own realization of these attributes by moving away from friends and partners who react with envy to your possession of yourself. If you find yourself reticent to, say, share a success with a friend or a partner, then this may signal that they feel threatened by you being your whole self and seeking to celebrate who you are in front of them. But in contrast, if you feel welcomed and in fact celebrated when you share good news about yourself and what you've done, then these maybe the type of people to move more towards? Well, one obstacle that can get in the way of moving away from those who envy you is feeling responsible for their emotional well-being. There's a fragile quality to people who envy others in this manner, and for the scapegoat survivor who has a lot of empathy, this fragility in these other people can evoke a protective instinct. And I would argue that in these cases, the scapegoat survivor's empathy towards such envious people comes at the cost of the survivor's own emotional well-being, and recovery involves practicing making oneself your own priority in this regard. So if you find yourself feeling guilty for moving away from a friend or partner who puts you down for being your full self, then you might compassionately respond to yourself that you can't be responsible for their well-being, that they in fact must take responsibility for themselves in this way. And many people who are narcissistic, in essence, do not take this responsibility to care for themselves and instead feel entitled for others to care for them in this manner. And so some of the guilt felt by the scapegoat survivor may reflect a concern for what will happen to the other person when their entitled demands are not complied with. Well, with all that said, the question might arise, how can you identify who it's safe to be successful around? Well, in Module 4 of my online course on recovery from narcissistic abuse, I address this topic in great depth. So I go through a spreadsheet of attributes of safe people, then provide you with this spreadsheet so that you can assess the people in your life with it. And you get to come up with a score for each person, then rank the people on your list from highest to lowest score to give you an idea of sort of who's the safest versus least safe. If you haven't already, I'd encourage you to click, you can either click here or find the link in the description box below to learn more about the course and how it might help you kind of structure and populate your life with people who are kind of in your corner and safe to kind of celebrate who you are with, as opposed to folks who find this threatening and react by trying to kind of poke holes in your success and the rightful pride you get to take in it. Well, thanks for watching this week. I hope you found this video helpful, and I look forward to posting again next week. And, again, as always, thank you for your continued engagement with the channel, for your comments, and they're just so heartening to read and to see the community that I think is really, has been established and seems to get renewed each week in the comments section. Well, again, thank you, and I will see you again next week.